The letter had arrived 2 days after the Viscount's wedding, not that she had been invited to it. It was sealed in wax, wrapped in cream ribbon, and smelled faintly of his cologne, that same clean, clipped citrus that once lingered on her pillows. She didn't open it for hours. Not out of hope, out of dread. She already knew what it would say. When she finally slid the blade beneath the fold, her hands did not shake. Her heart had stopped doing that weeks ago. It was not a letter of apology. It was not a confession of regret. It was simply an instruction.
When you return from your sisters, I trust the house will be quiet. I will have guests when I return from the continent. The room you occupied is to be aired. Your trunks will be left with the housekeeper.
No signature, no farewell, only his title at the bottom, like a decree, the Viscount of Locksley. She folded the letter once, twice, and then pressed it to her chest. 7 years, and he sent me away like a servant. No goodbye, no thank you, no truth, just silence, tied in ribbon. She packed slowly as if movement might undo the truth.
Stay with us until the end. You may think you know what this story is, but what waits in the final breath might change the way you see everything.
There were only 2 trunks, one with dresses, the other with keepsakes he never knew she'd kept. A dried flower from their first outing, the button from his waistcoat she'd sewn back on, a silver hairpin he'd once tucked behind her ear and forgotten. She took nothing of value, only what couldn't be replaced. The estate was silent. No carriages waited. No servants helped her load her things. The housekeeper, red-eyed and tight-lipped, handed her a flask of water and a parcel of bread. She did not say goodbye. She only whispered,
"I never believed he'd do it, miss."
The sun was still high when she began the walk down the estate road, the kind with dust that clung to hems and memories. She did not look back. She told herself not to cry, but the tears came anyway, slow at first, then steady, then blinding. Her world had collapsed, but not suddenly. It had been crumbling for weeks, beginning with that one moment, 2 months ago. They had been in his study. She had poured the brandy, though he hadn't asked her to. He sat by the fire, his boots still muddy from riding. His cravat was loose, his collar open, his hair mussed by wind and arrogance. She placed the glass in front of him and sat on the edge of the hearth, warming her hands. Then she asked it, the question that had lodged in her throat for weeks.
"Is she just a friend?"
He laughed, not cruelly, not kindly.
Don't be absurd.
That was the first cut. Not what he said, but the way he said it. Like she'd embarrassed them both by asking. She should have left then. But love does strange things to a woman. It teaches her to stay when she should run, to believe silence means safety, that his absence is simply the cost of his importance. She hadn't spoken of it again, until the letter. Now, the trees blurred as she walked. Her bonnet hung loose from its ribbons, her boots scuffed. Her tears made rivers down her cheeks. She heard nothing but the crack of twigs beneath her feet, so she didn't hear the carriage until it was nearly upon her.
"Stop the carriage, my lord! Halt the horses!"
The sound tore through the stillness like a musket shot. She looked up just in time to see wheels turning toward her, hooves rearing, men shouting, and then the world spun sideways. She collapsed into dust and silence. She woke to the scent of leather and cedarwood, the movement of wheels beneath her, the muffled sound of male voices and the clink of reins. Her head pounded. She blinked against the soft velvet curtain and realized she was not dead, only somewhere she did not recognize. A man's coat lay folded over her legs, fine wool, military cut. Not the Viscount's. The carriage jolted slightly, and she caught the outline of a man seated across from her. Tall, dark hair, strong brow. His eyes were closed, or perhaps looking away. The Marquis of Haverley. She recognized him instantly, not because they had met, but because every paper called him England's most eligible bachelor. Every society column had once paired him with Lady Eugenia, the Duke's daughter, a man known for sharp wit, wild parties, and rarely being seen with the same woman twice. What in God's name was she doing in his carriage? A knock came at the door from the driver's seat, respectfully.
She's awake, my lord.
The man opened his eyes, clear, calculating, but not cruel.
You fainted. In the road. We nearly killed you.
She sat up quickly, gripping the side of the carriage.
I didn't see. I didn't hear it.
Obviously.
He reached forward slowly and handed her the water flask that had fallen from her bag. She took it with trembling hands. For a moment, Silence settled again, not heavy but expectant, and then he said something she did not expect.
You're not from town, and you're not dressed for travel. So tell me, what exactly were you walking away from?
Her throat closed. She did not answer. He watched her for a long moment.
She's young, but not innocent, and something in her face looks like grief trying to remember how to breathe.
No jewels, no companion, no ring, but something in her silence. It's louder than most women's screams. They rode in silence for some time. She did not speak. He did not press, but he did not look away from her again. And somewhere beneath her ribs, where love used to live, something stirred. Not desire, not yet, but recognition, as if the wind had shifted, as if fate for once had blinked. Her hands trembled in her lap. Her throat ached from holding back tears. The quiet of the carriage lulled her. She meant to stay awake, but her body gave out before her mind did. She slept, not deeply but fully, the kind of sleep that only follows complete collapse. The bed beneath her was far too soft to belong to any inn. She opened her eyes slowly. Cream-colored drapes fluttered in the breeze. The scent of lavender clung to the air. The fire had been banked low, and the furniture was carved from dark walnut, heavy, expensive. There was no sound but the faint ticking of a long case clock and the steady hush of rain beginning outside the window. She sat up, dazed, and found herself dressed in a fine cotton nightgown, not hers. Her bonnet was gone, so were her boots. Her first instinct was shame. Her second was to flee. She reached for the bell pull, but before her fingers touched the tassel, the door creaked open. A footman stood, hands folded behind his back.
Good morning, miss. Marcus requests your comfort. You're free to stay until you are well.
She blinked.
The Marquis?
Lord Haverley, miss. You fainted in front of his travelling carriage. He carried you inside.
She touched her forehead. It ached. Not badly, but enough to remind her she had not dreamed the dust, the wheels, the sound of horses. The Viscount's name stirred inside her mind like poison in water. I was leaving his house, and now I'm in another man's. Is this all I'm meant for? Moving from one man's estate to the next, never belonging to any of them? She dressed with help from a quiet maid, who said nothing except to offer her a tray of warm bread, honey and tea. She barely touched it. There was no corset provided, only a soft house gown in pale blue. She hated how it felt, comforting. An hour later, the Marquess entered the small sitting room where she had been seated. She stood immediately. He did not bow. He did not speak at once. He only looked at her, long and steadily, as if deciding what kind of creature she was. She dropped her eyes to the floor.
I trust your head is better?
Yes, my lord. Thank you.
The pause.
You're very formal for someone with no companion, no bags and no name.
Let him think what he wants. I've already been called worse by better men.
She said nothing. He tilted his head slightly.
Am I to believe you were simply walking?
Yes.
He stepped closer.
And what was at the end of that walk? Family, a friend, a grave?
She looked up, finally, just enough for him to see that her eyes were dry now, but her voice wasn't steady.
No one was waiting for me. That's rather the point.
She answers like a lady. But a lady doesn't walk a road with nothing but 2 trunks and heartbreak on her face.
He sat in the opposite chair and regarded her with a kind of calculated calm, the sort he'd learned in courtrooms and dinner parties where nothing could be said plainly.
You don't have to tell me who he was.
She froze.
I beg your pardon?
The man you were walking away from.
Her breath caught. She looked toward the window, where the light had begun to shift. The silence between them held more weight than anything spoken aloud. Over the next 2 days, she did not speak much, but she did not leave. She walked the edge of the gardens alone, always in the late morning when the house was quiet. The staff left her trays of food she barely touched. At night, she read by the fire in her room, small leather-bound novels with faded gold titles. And the Marquis, he did not disturb her, not until the 3rd night. It was nearly dusk when she heard the knock on her door. She opened it slowly. He stood with a glass in one hand. Not brandy, she noted, just water. His cravat was looser than usual. He looked tired, not from lack of sleep, from the weight of pretending not to be watching her. He paused, just enough to let the moment shift.
My mother is away, visiting family in Wiltshire. She left a fortnight ago and will return in just under 3 weeks.
He didn't look at her, not exactly. His gaze drifted to the window. then back to the hallway beyond.
When she returns, she will ask who you are. She'll ask what room you were put in. She'll ask if you're married.
Her spine straightened a little.
She will not ask these things cruelly, but she will not ask them kindly either.
She said nothing. He finally looked at her fully now.
You are under no obligation to remain, but if you do, I would prefer you not be blindsided by her arrival.
There was something honest in his tone. Not pity, not pride, just a kind of weary care. The kind that grows when you're used to watching things fall apart quietly.
And if she asks, I'll tell her you're here because I invited you, which, in a manner of speaking, I suppose I did.
She didn't respond, but the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. 2 days passed quietly after their conversation in the drawing room. Marian remained reserved, but the stiffness in her spine softened. She no longer avoided common spaces. She took her tea on the stone terrace when the sun allowed. She touched the piano once, not to play, just to feel the keys beneath her fingers. The staff adjusted quickly. They addressed her respectfully but without question. The Marquis, true to his word, did not press. He did not hover. He simply allowed her the room to exist. On the second evening, the parlour was lit in amber silence, not by candlelight but by the failing sun outside the tall windows. Marian sat near the hearth with a porcelain cup she had barely touched. The Marquis stood at the fireplace. He had entered the room only moments before, holding a folded broadsheet in one hand and a hint of amusement in the other.
Would you care for a scandal?
She blinked, not unkindly.
No politics, just absurdity. There's an article on page 2 about a lady who named her Pomeranian heir to a Welsh manor.
A small breath escaped her, the closest thing to a smile he'd seen yet. He turned the page, intending to hand it to her, but her fingers paused mid-reach. Her eyes caught something across the front. London Society Gazette. The Viscount of Locksley and Miss Beatrice Aldwyn wed in private ceremony at Rose Abbey. The paper fluttered slightly between her hands. Her throat tightened.
He didn't waste time.
The Marquis looked at her. He heard the change in her voice but didn't yet understand. Then he followed her gaze. His expression shifted.
Do you know them?
She didn't answer right away. Her fingers curled gently over the edges of the paper. Her voice, when it came, was stripped of emotion, too even.
I gave him 7 years, and he gave her a church.
There was no venom in it, no tearful collapse, just the heavy finality of someone who had carried grief too long and too privately.
That was it then.
That was the man who ruined her. And she had loved him enough to be destroyed this quietly. She moved to stand. He caught her glance, not with his hand, but with the firmness of his voice.
Stay.
She hesitated, her feet stilled, but she didn't sit. He stepped forward, gently placed the newspaper aside, and looked her full in the face.
I don't know what he promised you. I don't care.
Her lips parted slightly, not in offense, but in surprise. There was no cruelty in his tone, no detachment, just truth. He drew a slow breath.
But I'd never send a woman away with nothing but a ribbon around a lie.
She didn't answer.
He wasn't a stranger. He was the man I loved. And somehow, he still made me believe I was disposable.
She did not sleep much that night, nor did he. The fire burned low in the hearth, and in the quiet that followed, something else began to stir. Not in the world outside, but in her, a tightening behind the ribs, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, a storm that hadn't yet found its voice. She had stayed silent for days, but silence never holds forever, and what lived in her heart was about to tear through the calm. But silence is never empty. It holds things, tight things, hot things, things that swell like breath caught in the chest too long. And in Marian, it had been growing. The grief, the shame, the humiliation, the ache of knowing she had been discarded in silence, and now kept alive only by someone else's pity. She didn't want to think that way. She didn't want to resent the Marquis, but every kindness from him, the books, the firewood, the tray of warm tea, felt like someone handing her bandages for wounds they didn't understand.
Don't unravel. Not here, not in front of him. Don't let the tears make it real.
But grief is not a thing that obeys. It was late morning when he found her again. She was sitting on the low stone bench near the orchard wall, staring into a garden bed where nothing had bloomed in weeks. He came without sound, carrying something in both hands, a ceramic cup, a folded napkin, almond biscuits she hadn't asked for. He stood before her, uncertain, but composed.
I thought you might like some tea. There's a bit of honey, and these, I'm told, are almond biscuits. I'm partial to them.
She didn't answer, just looked at the tray. He tried again with a flicker of that rare humour.
Light, almost playful. The cook said you hummed while slicing leeks yesterday. It was very controversial. She's still recovering.
She flinched, not visibly, but something in her tightened, and then she stood, fast.
Sir, I am aware, deeply aware, that I owe you more than I can name. That you had every right to leave me in the road that day and didn't. That you've shown me kindness beyond reason, and for that I am not ungrateful.
Her breath came faster now, her chest rising. She wasn't yelling, but the words hit like a slap.
But I cannot bear the feeling that I am some wounded thing you've taken upon yourself to heal. I am not a stray to be mended. I'm not a patient or a project.
Her voice cracked.
I loved a man for 7 years, 7. And I thought if I was patient enough, quiet enough, good enough, he'd choose me.
She turned slightly away, like she couldn't bear to be seen in this state.
But he didn't. He married her, the one with the name, the one who belonged in the pew beside him. And now I'm here, and I don't know who I am when I'm not waiting to be loved.
She covered her mouth as a sob broke, sharp, real, shattering. The Marquis didn't move. He only set the tray down gently, as if any sudden motion might cause more damage.
Forgive me. I only meant to bring you peace, and may have instead delivered pressure.
Then he left her there, without demand, without correction, just quiet. And Marian sank slowly back to the bench, trembling, alone. She didn't go to him right away, but when the sun began to fall, soft amber across the west fields, she followed the path toward the stables, where she knew he would be. She found him beside the gate, his coat open, his jaw set, his eyes cast toward the hills like he was watching a storm he hadn't decided whether to run from or face. He heard her footsteps, but didn't turn. She stepped closer, hands cold, heart raw.
I shouldn't have spoken to you like that.
Still, he said nothing. She took a breath.
You were only trying. I see that now. You weren't fixing me. You weren't patronizing.
You were just holding space.
She swallowed hard.
It still hurts. So much. And I don't know where to put it.
And she stepped toward him, not as a woman seeking romance, but as one seeking a place to collapse without shame. Her forehead brushed his shoulder, and the Marquis, he wrapped his arms around her, as though he'd been waiting to do exactly that from the moment he first saw her on the road. Not tight, not careful. Real. She sobbed into his chest. Small, broken sounds that shook her entire frame. She didn't cry that morning. It had been 12 days since she'd stepped into Everley Hall, wet and heart-shattered, and though the ache lingered, silent, pulsing behind her ribs, something in the silence had shifted. The rooms no longer felt foreign, the quiet no longer echoed her grief, and the Marquis was no longer just the man who found her on the road. He waited for her every morning now, not with declarations, not even with expectation, just a pair of gloves in one hand, and the faintest nod towards the path outside the garden. She followed him, always a step behind, always quiet. On the 4th morning, as she sipped a cup of tea on the conservatory bench, he appeared without announcement. I've decided you need to be publicly humbled. She glanced up, cautious.
Excuse me?
You're going riding with me. Her eyes widened.
Absolutely not.
You'll love it.
I'll fall.
I'll catch you. She stared at him. His tone hadn't wavered. He meant it, and that was somehow worse. She hadn't ridden since she was a girl, and even then only on a lazy grey pony who'd wandered more than trotted. But now she sat, unsteady, on a dark gelding named Rook, reins in her hands, and the Marquis standing beside her, adjusting the stirrup. No jokes, no smugness, just patience. He didn't touch her unless necessary, but when he did, her boot, her elbow, the lever near her knee, it was with quiet intention. She hated that she noticed, hated more that she didn't hate it. The horse shifted under her. She startled and toppled straight into the hedge. Leaves, grass, dignity in tatters. She groaned. He crouched beside her with a mock-serious nod.
Flawless dismount. Olympic-worthy, really.
She threw a leaf at him. He didn't dodge. Her laughter burst from her chest before she could stop it. Wild, unladylike, pure. He didn't laugh back. He only watched. And in that moment, she caught it. The way his gaze settled, like he'd never heard anything more sacred. That afternoon, they walked the orchard. The light filtered through the trees in soft columns, and she said very little. He didn't mind. He offered her a book after supper. Poetry. Nothing romantic. But he didn't offer his presence that evening. And strangely, she missed it. The next day, she found a tea tray waiting for her in the garden. Just one cup. Lemon. No sugar. She looked up. He wasn't far. Hands in his pockets, looking away.
The cook was feeling charitable. I only bribed her slightly.
She gave a tight smile, but inside her stomach twisted. It was too much. The tray, the lemon, the remembering.
He listens. He remembers. He brings things before I ask.
And I've never known what it is to be tended to like this, without cost.
It makes me want to retreat. Don't be foolish. He belongs to someone already. Sign, Lady Eugenia, the one with the name, the dowry, the title. He is not for women found on empty roads with nothing but grief and a ruined name.
She walked faster after that, as if she could outrun the warmth blooming in her chest and the ache that bloomed just beneath it. She didn't sleep that night, not from grief, not from anger, but from something far less familiar, something warm and uncertain that refused to quiet. His kindness had always been present, steady, soft, unspoken, but now she questioned it, and worse, she had started to look for it. She found herself listening, watching, the way he pulled gloves over his long fingers in the morning, the way he looked away when she caught his eye, like a boy who hadn't meant to be caught. It unnerved her, not because she feared him, but because she didn't know how to be seen like this, not after years of being someone else's shadow. That evening she wandered the halls longer than usual. The lamps glowed soft gold. Rain had begun to tap against the windows, light and rhythmic. As she passed the long corridor near the study, something made her stop. The door was cracked open, just slightly. Inside, he sat at the hearth, alone. The fire was low. A single candle burned on his desk. He wasn't reading, he wasn't writing. He was looking at a bottle of brandy. He hadn't touched it, not a drop. His hands rested on either side of the glass, steady, still. And then he laughed, once, quiet, bitter, soft mutter to himself.
Before her, I'd have drunk it all down, just to sleep, just to stop the noise.
He exhaled, low and slow.
Quietly. She doesn't know. How could she? That before she arrived, I drank to forget this house, this life, this name. That every woman I brought here, every night I wasted, was rebellion, was rage, was desperation dressed as pleasure. He stared at the bottle again, then softly, a whisper not meant for ears, quietly to himself. She's made it hard to forget anything now.
Marion stood in the hall, unmoving. She hadn't meant to listen, but she didn't step inside. She let him have that moment alone, the dignity of silence. And when she returned to her room, she lit no candle. She lay beneath the covers, the sound of rain in her ears and the memory of his voice in her chest. The next morning, the sun returned. She found him already on the terrace, sipping tea, a letter in hand. His posture was casual, but his eyes flicked to her with an unreadable expression. He held the letter aloft.
My mother writes from Bath.
She raised a brow.
Still steeped in scandal?
Up to the hairline. She's been detained. Another 3 weeks.
He paused, as if considering how much to say. Then, softly, sincere.
Which means I will not let the house falling to dust before her return, nor will I let you forget how to smile.
Marion looked down, at her tea, at the sunlight, anywhere but him, but she did smile, just slightly, and he noticed.
This can't mean anything. He's not mine. He never could be. Lady Eugenia is the one they chose, the one he's meant to marry. I'm only a guest, a quiet thing he once rescued from the road.
She sipped her tea.
Then why does he look at me like that?
That night, she walked the gardens alone. The moon hung low, the grass still wet from morning. She passed the hedge where he'd caught her after her fall, the orchard where her laughter had first startled her, the place where he'd handed her tea without asking, and remembered every detail she never spoke. And as she reached the old stone arch, she stopped. She looked up. Above, one window was lit, golden behind drawn curtains, his study. And for one long moment, she let herself believe he might still be awake, watching her too. Far beyond the garden walls, a carriage turned off the main road, black, polished, unmarked. Inside sat a woman in emerald green, gloved, poised, unreadable. The name on her calling card? Lady Eugenia Hargrave, and she had arrived early. The first sign of her arrival was the sound of hooves. Not the usual two-horse carriage used by the estate, but four. Polished, heavy. The kind that didn't bring letters, the kind that didn't leave quickly. Marian stood by the tall window near the conservatory, hands still damp from tending herbs in the garden. She had dirt under her fingernails, the faint scent of thyme still on her wrists. And then the black carriage appeared. It rolled in slowly, silently, like something out of a memory she didn't own. The door opened, and a woman stepped down. She was tall, elegant, gloved in ivory. Her gown, deep green satin, shimmered in the light like it had something to prove. The estate staff appeared almost immediately, bustling forward with energy Marian hadn't seen in days. Suitcases, boxes, hat cases, all engraved with a single monogram, E.H. She didn't need to ask who she was. She already knew. Lady Eugenia Hargrave.
So she's real. Not just a name, not just a shadow, a woman, a presence, a match, everything I'm not.
She stepped back from the window before the Marquis appeared in the drive, but not before she saw the way his face tightened as he looked at Eugenia, the brief flicker of duty crossing over something else, something Marian couldn't name. He hadn't mentioned her once, not by name, not by rumour, not even in passing, and yet now, she was here, smiling, hugging him like they'd rehearsed it in childhood. Marian turned away. She didn't come down for tea, nor for supper. When the maid knocked gently on her door, she replied only, quietly, "I'm not unwell, I'm just tired." But tired wasn't the word. It was displaced, uninvited, unreal. It had been foolish to feel at home, to laugh, to ride, to read, to let herself imagine he looked at her like something more than charity.
She is the woman he was made for. I was only ever the detour. But this is different. He never made me any promise. We never even ever kissed.
Downstairs, laughter carried up the hall. Eugenia's voice, smooth, practiced, familiar. She greeted the staff by name, tipped her chin, flattered the cook. She spoke of her time in Paris, her headaches, her new dressmaker, the ridiculous cousin she'd left behind in Mayfair. She didn't ask about Marianne. She didn't have to. The next morning, Marian dressed earlier than usual. She stepped onto the terrace with cautious resolve, the kind that comes from pretending nothing has changed. The Marquis was already there, standing with a teacup in one hand and a letter in the other. For the briefest second, his eyes lit at the sight of her. But then,
Good morning.
Lady Eugenia appeared from the far end of the terrace, her gloved hand already sliding possessively into the crook of his arm. She turned her head toward Marian, smiling too widely.
"You must be the guest. I've heard so much. Well, no, I've heard very little. That always means there's a story."
Marian stiffened but nodded slightly.
"I do hope you've enjoyed your stay. Everleigh is quite charming in early summer. All the light, all the distractions."
She tilted her head, then added, as though it had just occurred to her,
"Has he told you the news?"
A beat. Marian glanced at the Marquis. He said nothing.
"We're to be married."
She gave a delicate laugh, the kind meant to land like a slap.
"Of course, it's all rather inevitable, isn't it?"
Marian opened her mouth to speak, then thought better of it. She turned to leave. The Marquis said her name once, soft, uncertain. She didn't stop. That night she sat at the window of her room, hands curled into the folds of her gown. Below, in the drawing room, music drifted up, piano and laughter and crystal glasses clinking softly. He hadn't come to find her. Not today, and maybe not again. But deep in the dark, long after the candles were snuffed and the corridors hushed, she heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow, measured, halting. They stopped outside her door. She didn't move, didn't open it, and after a long pause, they turned away. The estate was unusually still that morning. The maids moved with care. The hallways had been polished again, fresh linens in the guest rooms. Cook had sent up her third tray of buttered scones, claiming A visit this important needs layers, but no one said why. No one told Marian anything. So she stayed by the window in the south hall, watching the gravel drive curve toward the hedged rose garden. Hands folded so tightly her knuckles were white. The Marquis had been out riding that morning, alone. He hadn't said a word to her since the terrace, and Lady Eugenia? She had smiled all through breakfast, rising orchestral swell, strings climbing gently under piano. The sound of the carriage came first, not fast, but certain. 2 horses, glossy black, polished trim, the crest of the family etched into the side. She stood, breath caught. The coachman dismounted and moved to the door. The footman appeared beside him, opening it with precision. A booted foot emerged, and then a tall, severe woman in deep plum silk stepped down, her posture regal, her eyes sharp as flint, the Marquis's mother. Her presence filled the air like incense, heavy and uninvited. Marian's stomach tightened, but she didn't look away. And then another figure stepped out of the carriage, softer, shorter, wrapped in lavender lace and layered scarves that danced in the breeze. She held onto the door for balance, then turned toward the house. She was talking before she even crossed the threshold.
Darling, this place is far too big for its own good. I nearly forgot which direction the front was.
Her voice stopped. She froze, eyes landing directly on Marian. A pause, a beat, and then...
Marian?
The name cracked through the hall like thunder. Marian stumbled forward, her throat dry.
Aunt Beatrix.
The Marquis's mother looked between them, stone-faced. The staff froze, tea trays trembling in their hands. Lady Eugenia, who had only just stepped into the corridor, blinked. Beatrix rushed forward, grabbing Marian's arms, eyes wide with disbelief.
What are you... How in heaven's name did you come to be? What happened to you? The letters, your father, no one told me anything.
Marian's voice barely rose above a whisper.
I didn't know you'd come.
Beatrix pulled her into a brief, ungraceful hug, then held her at arm's length, inspecting her face.
You've been crying. You've been thin. Oh, and don't think I don't see it. That man hurt you, didn't he? The Viscount.
Marian stiffened. The Marquis's mother inhaled sharply.
You know each other?
Beatrix blinked at her old friend, only just seeming to realise the other woman was even present.
Well, of course I know her. She's my niece.
A silence fell across the entry hall. The Marquis had entered then, drawn by the noise. His eyes flicked from Marianne to his mother, to Beatrix, and back. Eugenia stood quietly behind him, arms folded, but her eyes were narrowed.
So that's how it happens. A secret doesn't knock. It rides up the drive and walks through the front door, and suddenly I'm not no one anymore.
Some truths enter like thunder, others settle in like fog. By morning, nothing is where it was, and no one dares say so aloud. The breakfast table was unusually quiet. Beatrix, of course, spoke.
Well, I hardly slept a wink. It's the altitude, I think, or maybe the lavender sheets. Do you grow it on the grounds, my dear?
The Marquis's mother, seated at the head of the table, answered without looking up.
Imported from Provence.
Beatrix nodded, then smiled at Marian, who had barely touched her eggs.
Poor thing, still stunned to see me. I must look worse than I write.
There was a faint snort from the Marquis, but he said nothing. Eugenia, seated with perfect posture beside him, gently stirred her tea.
Such a surprise, really. Family connections turning up in unexpected places. You never know who you'll find. Or where.
Marian's eyes stayed on her plate.
They're circling each other, like birds over something dying.
And somehow I'm the something. Marian was thumbing through a book she hadn't been reading when she heard the voices drifting in from the next room. The door wasn't fully closed. She didn't mean to listen, but she did. Eugenia first.
Does it not concern you, Francis? She's here, and now she's not just a guest, she's someone.
The Marquis's mother.
Beatrix should have said something before bringing her. She was supposed to be in Hampshire. Why she ran, why she came here of all places.
Eugenia again.
Because your son took her in, it was not Beatrix.
A silence. Then...
And now he watches her, like she's air in a room that's suffocating him.
That's how they see it. A mistake. A distraction.
Not kindness, not care.
A complication.
She turned away from the door. Her hands were trembling. He found her at dusk. She was kneeling in the herb garden, digging her fingers into the earth, not for planting, but to ground herself. He approached quietly. She didn't turn. "I didn't know your aunt was coming." Marian's reply was steady, too steady.
Neither did I. It was all a surprise. I had no clue she was an acquaintance of your mother either.
A pause, then...
They think I'm here to change things.
He knelt beside her.
They're right.
He said it so simply, as if it were fact, not danger, and for the first time, I believed him.
That night, Eugenia stood by the stairwell, watching them from above. She said nothing, but her hand tightened on the rail, and the storm she'd been pretending wasn't coming now had a name. Some storms do not shout. They smile, they charm, they enter with roses and leave with ruin. Lady Eugenia was that storm, and Marian. She would learn to stand in the wind. Eugenia sat in the music room, idly running her fingers across the piano keys. Not playing, just tapping. She wasn't wearing gloves. That in itself was telling. The Marquis entered. He did not bow, nor did he smile. She looked up, gave a smile like cooled wine.
Your little guest is quite popular. I believe even the gardener offered her a rose this morning.
He didn't answer. She rose from the bench, brushing invisible dust from her skirt.
I wonder what your mother will say. Or have you not told her yet that your summer companion is family adjacent?
The Marquis's voice was quiet, controlled.
She's a guest, nothing more.
Eugenia moved closer.
She's a story. That's what she is. A woman dragged from the side of the road, given shelter in Everley, now breaking bread with the air. She may not be wearing a crown, darling, but she's already ruling the gossip.
She reached for the lapel of his coat. He stepped back.
Don't touch me.
Her expression didn't change, but her eyes lost some light.
I see.
Marian sat curled in a velvet chair, turning the pages of a volume she hadn't been able to finish. Her aunt had gone into town. The Marquis was nowhere to be seen. A rustle of skirts. Eugenia stood in the doorway. She didn't ask to enter. She simply did.
Reading? How terribly poetic. It suits you.
Marian marked her page and closed the book.
Is there something you need?
Not need, just curious. I've always found it fascinating how quickly women adapt to comfort, especially those who once lived without it.
She paused by the window.
I assume you never imagined you'd end up in a place like this, a house like this, a man like him.
Marian's voice remained even.
I don't imagine things anymore.
Eugenia turned, tilting her head.
Then I suppose I should congratulate you. You're very convincing.
A long silence. Then, as if it were nothing at all.
You know we're to be married. I told you once, and your aunt must have told you.
Marian stood slowly. Her spine straightened. Her voice stayed level.
Did you come here to warn me?
Eugenia smiled.
No, darling. I came to remind you.
Later that evening, Marian stood in the garden, under the stone arch. Rain had passed. The world was wet, but peaceful. The Marquis joined her silently. They stood side by side. Then,
She wants to destroy you.
Marian didn't flinch.
I know.
A beat.
And I don't know what frightens me more, that she could, or that I might let her.
She never belonged to Ashes. That man who left her didn't deserve her name in his mouth. But me? I'm no better. Not if I let her stay without a future.
He looked at her then. She looked back, but neither said what they were thinking. That night, Beatrix returned from town with news. A dinner was being arranged, one with guests, one where appearances mattered, one where Marian would be expected to dine at the same table as the woman who said she'd marry the Marquis.
If I am to vanish, let it be in satin.
Some kisses are stolen, some given, but the ones that change everything are the ones that burn through every lie, every silence, every duty ever assigned by blood or birth. Marian had escaped the drawing room under the pretense of needing air. She wasn't sure what had driven her out, the pressure of the guests, the weight of Eugenia's glances, or the way the Marquis hadn't looked at her once across the table. The moonlight spilled through the glass panes of the conservatory. The scent of lemon balm and night jasmine filled the air. She exhaled slowly, alone, until a shadow moved near the ivy-framed arch, and then a voice.
Did you think I wouldn't come?
She turned sharply, eyes narrowing.
Did you hide to get here? Or are you only brave when no one's watching?
The Marquis stepped forward. He looked tired. No, wrecked. Not from the evening, but from restraint, from silence, from everything he had been holding back.
You changed the room I lived in, Marion. I can't bear the thought of going back to the dark.
She blinked.
What?
He shook his head.
I used to drink every night to forget what was waiting for me. I lived like a man sentenced, not chosen. And then you appeared, bleeding, broken, proud. And all I could think was, how can someone be so soft and still survive the fall?
She swallowed hard. He stepped closer.
I ignored you that day with Eugenia. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't trust myself not to say something I couldn't take back.
He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away.
I am sorry for what I said, for what I didn't say, for every time I made you feel like you didn't belong.
She looked at him, eyes wide, brimming.
You're supposed to marry her.
I know.
She started to speak again, her voice quiet, trembling.
You don't understand. You're bound to her. Your future, your family, everything that holds your name together. It's not meant to be me.
Her voice cracked.
I could never give you the life they planned.
But he didn't let her finish that thought. Not because it wasn't true, but because it didn't matter. Because in that moment, he reached for her, not with hunger, but with tenderness, the kind that unraveled everything inside her. His hand touched her jaw. His thumb brushed a tear she hadn't meant to shed. And then he kissed her, not hurried, not forced, but full, slow, intentional. Her knees buckled slightly. She hoped to heaven he didn't notice the sound of her heart breaking open inside her chest. She kissed him back, wholly, helplessly, her fingers curling into his coat, as if the fabric was the only thing anchoring her to earth. In that moment, there was no title, no future, just him, just her. Until 3 sharp claps. The clap echoed through the glass room. They pulled apart slowly, dazed, breathless. Standing in the conservatory doorway, backlit by candlelight, Lady Eugenia, clapping.
So that's what she's here for.
She stepped forward, a smile thin as wire.
You tucked her away in your country state like a secret comfort, a private indulgence. And all this time, I thought it was pity.
The Marquess turned, his voice steady but his jaw tight.
Eugenia.
Don't insult me by pretending I misread it. I saw you tonight. You never once looked at me. Not once.
She laughed, brittle and breathless.
You made me believe this was real, that we were still real.
He met her gaze.
I never promised you love, or even affection. Not once. And I wish that had been enough to protect you, but it wasn't. What our families arranged, I honored it. But my heart was never mine to offer.
Eugenia's face twitched, her hands clenched at her sides.
You'll ruin everything. Your title, your alliances, your name for her?
He didn't blink.
I'd rather ruin it with her than preserve it without her.
She didn't come to be chosen. She came to be forgotten. But sometimes, the ones who are most overlooked become the ones who matter most. The entire house buzzed with a strange, nervous silence. Eugenia had left. She had said nothing more after the confrontation in the conservatory, simply walked out with her head high and her gloves still perfectly fitted, a closed door, a finished page. Marion, however, had not returned to her room that night. She had stayed in the garden, beneath the stars, until dawn brushed the ivy in gold. She needed stillness, not to forget the kiss, but to understand how her heart had survived it. The Dowager Marchioness entered without fanfare. Her steps were quiet, her expression unreadable. The housekeeper stood to bow. The staff lowered their eyes. And then she asked for Marion. Marion came, slowly, dressed plainly, hair half-tied, heart pounding like she'd run. The room fell silent. The Marquis stood behind her, unreadable. Beatrix gave a knowing look, but said nothing. Then the Dowager spoke.
When I left this house, I left it with a son who had no patience, no discipline, no care for anything beyond what gave him escape.
She looked at Marion, not unkindly, not sternly.
When I returned, I found a man who no longer drinks to silence himself, but who speaks to be heard.
A pause.
And it was your name on his lips, child. Not his title, not his duty. Yours.
Marion's eyes widened. The Dowager stepped forward and took her hand.
I don't care what blood runs in your veins or how your story began. Any woman who can give my son back to me is worthy to be his wife.
Marian's breath hitched, and then, for the first time, the dowager smiled.
And perhaps I might finally die in peace without fearing he'll end up in a ditch or a scandal sheet.
Laughter followed, light, relieved. Even the Marquis let out a low chuckle, one he hadn't realized he'd been holding in for years. They were wed beneath the old ash tree behind Everley, the same one where she once walked in silence. She wore no crown, only violets in her hair. The house stood fuller now, warmer. The staff sang when they thought no one was listening. The garden bloomed without fear of being walked upon. And the Marquis? He looked at her like she was sunlight made real.
Society will always write rules, but the heart was written by something older. Status fades, beauty fades, even names will one day be forgotten. But the way a changes another, that is the mark of true worth. So let the world say what it will, let it scorn what it cannot understand, because when love is pure, it doesn't ask for permission. It breaks every gate, it silences every lie, and in the end, it wins.
I wore my shame like Sunday lace, eyes downcast, no saving grace. I walked the road the world forgot, with empty trunks and tearless thoughts. The manor stood like distant snow, too grand for someone cast so low. But he saw the girl beneath the hollow shell, the quiet grief. And he found me in the silence where no voice had dared to stay. He didn't ask for answers, he just chose to stay. He reached for me so gently, as if I were not small, as if the broken pieces were beautiful after all. He spoke like winter breaking slow, a warmth too soft for me to know. He brought me tea, then let me be. But oh, he saw what none could see, a garden left to sleep and fade. He sat with me beside its grave, not with pity, not with pride, but something truer locked inside. And he found me in the silence where no voice had dared to stay. He didn't ask for answers, he just chose to stay. He reached for me so gently, as if I were not small, as if the broken pieces were beautiful after all. They said I was too plain to love, too common, too ashamed to touch. But he didn't need a crown to kneel beside me on the ground. He never promised golden vows, no firework, no swollen clouds, just his presence soft and near, He took no pride in pulling me. He simply stood and let me breathe until I turned with trembling hands and laid my past into his palms. And he found me in the silence where no voice had dared to stay. He didn't ask for answers, he just chose to stay. He reached for me so gently, as if I were not small, as if the broken pieces were beautiful after all. Now every morning when I wake, I hear his steps across the gate. He doesn't know he saved my soul, just held the light and made me whole. He found me in the silence. He found